My grandpa left me a beat-up old trailer as inheritance, but what I found there. Ryan Parker couldn't believe what he'd just heard at the lawyer's office. While his cousins received houses, apartments, and even a store in downtown Portland, all he'd inherited was a rusty trailer his grandpa Edward had kept on an abandoned lot on the outskirts of town. The reading of the will had been downright humiliating. His cousins openly laughed when the lawyer mentioned Ryan's inheritance, whispering among themselves about how their grandpa clearly didn't care for his unemployed grandson. Ryan, who had been out of work for 8 months and was about to be evicted from the tiny apartment he rented, felt his face burn with shame. "This has to be some kind of mistake," he muttered, still in disbelief. The lawyer, a grey-haired man named Dr. Thompson, shook his head with a serious expression. "There's no mistake, Mr. Parker. Your grandpa was very specific. The trailer and the land it sits on are rightfully yours." Jennifer, the oldest cousin, couldn't hide her smug smile. "Well, at least you didn't end up with nothing, cuz. That trailer must be worth $50 at the junkyard." Laughter filled the office, and Ryan felt a knot in his stomach. How could his grandpa, who had always been so loving to all his grandkids, do this to him? Did he really think of him as a failure? 3 days later, Ryan rode his old motorcycle to the address the lawyer had given him. The lot was in a rural area on the outskirts of town, a place he hadn't even known existed. The dirt road was full of potholes, and he had to slow down several times to keep from wiping out. When he finally arrived, what he saw made his heart sink even further. The lot was fenced with rusted barbed wire, a wooden gate barely holding itself up. And there, in the middle of the overgrown weeds, sat the infamous trailer. Ryan parked his bike and walked up to the gate. The chain locking it was so old that he easily snapped it with his hands. As he got closer to the trailer, he could see it was in even worse shape than he'd imagined. The original paint, which must have once been white, was now completely covered in rust. The windows were broken, some with shards of glass still clinging to the frames. The roof was dented in several spots, probably from fallen tree branches over the years. "What a wonderful gift, Grandpa," he grumbled, running both hands through his hair in complete despair. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us newcomers out. Now, back to the story. The trailer door was slightly ajar, swaying gently in the wind. Ryan took a deep breath and pushed it open all the way. The screech of rusted hinges echoed across the empty lot, and a strong smell of mold and dampness hit his nose. He covered his face with his shirt and stepped inside. The interior was in pitiful shape. What had once been a cozy little home on wheels now looked more like a trash heap. Dry leaves littered the floor, cobwebs clung to every corner, and the furniture was buried under a thick layer of dust. A small wooden table lay on its side, and the seat cushions were torn and moldy. Ryan moved through the cramped space, trying to figure out why his grandpa had held on to this thing for so long. As he passed what must have once been a tiny kitchen, something on the floor caught his eye. He bent down and picked it up. It was an old photograph, its edges yellowed with age. As he wiped it with his shirt sleeve, he immediately recognized the two people in the picture. Himself at around 7 years old and his grandpa Edward. Both were smiling, sitting at a picnic table. Ryan vaguely remembered that day. It had been during a family barbecue years ago. But what caught his attention the most was something written on the back of the photo. In his grandpa's distinctive handwriting, there was a message: "For my favorite grandson, look where the sun rises." Ryan's heart began to race. His grandpa used to speak in riddles when he was a child, always turning little games into adventures. But what could this mean? He looked around the trailer, trying to figure out where the east side would be. Through one of the broken windows, he could see the sun setting on the opposite side. That meant the side where the sun rose would be. Ryan moved to the opposite wall of the trailer. There, near what had been the trailer's bed, was a small wooden dresser, completely warped by moisture. He began examining it closely, running his hands over the surface. That's when he felt something odd. One side of the dresser seemed hollow. Ryan tapped it lightly with his knuckles and heard a different sound, as if there were an empty space behind the wood. Searching for something to use as a tool, he found a piece of rusted metal on the floor. Carefully, he began prying the side of the dresser. The damp wood gave way easily, and soon he opened a small hidden compartment. Inside was a brown envelope, sealed with tape that was already coming loose. Ryan picked it up gently and sat on the floor to open it. His hands trembled slightly as he pulled out the documents inside. The first document he saw was a birth certificate, but it wasn't his, nor anyone in the family he knew. It was for a child named Nathan Miller Brown, born in 1962. The father's name was blank, but the mother's name left him completely baffled: Mary Brown Johnson. Ryan had never heard of this woman. He searched through the other papers and found several handwritten letters, all addressed to his grandpa. As he read them, he grew more and more bewildered. They were love letters, written by this Mary Brown, but the dates showed the relationship had lasted several years, during the time his grandpa was married to his grandma Catherine. One of the letters, dated 1980, read, "My dearest Edward, Nathan turned 18 last week. He keeps asking more about his father. I don't know how much longer I can hide the truth from him. I know your situation is complicated, but our son deserves to know who his father is." Ryan let the letter fall from his hands. This couldn't be true. His grandpa, the man he'd always admired for being a devoted husband and exemplary father, had had an affair that lasted years, and worse, had another son. The sound of an approaching car snapped him out of his thoughts. Ryan quickly tucked the documents back into the envelope and hid it inside his jacket. Through the broken window, he saw a black car pulling up outside the property. To his surprise, it was Jennifer, his cousin, who stepped out. She was accompanied by Jason, another cousin, and the two walked toward the trailer with serious expressions. "Ryan," Jennifer called out. "Good, you're here. We need to talk." Ryan stepped out of the trailer, trying to appear as natural as possible, though his heart was pounding. "Hey, Jennifer. Hey, Jason. What are you doing here?" Jennifer gave a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "We've been discussing the situation, and we think it'd be best for everyone if you sold this property. Jason knows someone who deals in rural land sales. He said he could get you a good price." "A good price?" Ryan looked around. "Jennifer, look at the state of this place. It can't be worth anything." "You'd be surprised," Jason chimed in. "Rural land is going up in value around here. With the city possibly expanding this way, you could get a decent amount." There was something about their insistence that bothered Ryan. Why were they suddenly so concerned about his well-being? At the reading of the will, they'd made jokes about his inheritance, and now they were here offering to help him sell it. "I don't know. I need to think about it," Ryan said. Jennifer took a step forward, her expression growing tense. "Ryan, be reasonable. What are you going to do with this junkyard? You can't live here, and keeping land costs money you don't have. Sell it now and use the cash to get back on your feet." "Why are you so interested in what I do with my inheritance?" Ryan asked, crossing his arms. Jason and Jennifer exchanged a quick glance, and Ryan realized there was something they weren't telling him. "It's not about interest," Jason said. "It's about family. We want to help you." "Since when?" The irritation in Ryan's voice was clear. "You laughed at me at the lawyer's office. Now you come here pretending to care." Jennifer sighed and tried a different approach. "Look, Ryan, I'll be honest with you. Jason has connections at City Hall. There are rumors this area might be seized for a new road. If that happens, you could lose everything without proper compensation. It's better to sell now while you still can." Ryan studied his cousins' faces. There was something in their expressions that told him they knew more than they were letting on. And the fact that they'd shown up so quickly after the will reading was suspicious. "I'll think about it," he said finally. "When I make a decision, I'll let you know." Jennifer opened her mouth to insist, but Jason grabbed her arm. "All right, cousin, but don't take too long to decide. Opportunities like this don't last forever." They got back in their car and drove off, leaving a cloud of dust on the road. Ryan watched until they disappeared from sight, more convinced than ever that there was something important about this land his cousins didn't want him to find. When the sound of the engine faded completely, Ryan went back inside the trailer. He pulled the envelope from his jacket and kept examining the documents. There were more letters, some photos, and even a few bank transfer receipts. It seemed his grandpa had been sending money to Mary regularly for decades. One of the most recent letters, dated just 2 years ago, contained information that made Ryan sink heavily onto the trailer floor. Edward, Nathan grew up to be a good man, just as you hoped. He has a small but thriving business and never wanted for anything thanks to your support. I know you worry about telling your family the truth, but maybe it's time for Nathan to meet his half-siblings. I'm getting old, and I don't want to take this secret to the grave. Mary. Half-siblings. His father had a brother he'd never known. Ryan tried to process it, but it was too much. How had his family kept such a big secret for so long? He kept searching the hidden compartment and found a few more items. A small golden key on a leather keychain, some old-looking contracts, and a little address book with handwritten numbers. Ryan flipped through it and saw names he didn't recognize, but one in particular caught his eye. Nathan, office. There was a phone number beside it. For a moment he considered calling, but what would he say? "Hi, my name is Ryan, and I think you might be my uncle." That seemed too absurd to believe. He decided to keep exploring the trailer before making any decisions. There was a small closet in the back he hadn't checked yet. When he opened it, he found some old clothes, a moldy blanket, and a shoebox tied with string. Inside the box were more surprises, photos of a family he didn't recognize, a man who looked a lot like his father when he was young, a beautiful dark-haired woman, and 2 small children. On the back of one photo was written, "Nathan, Emily, and the little ones, Christmas 2018. Nathan had built his own family. Ryan had cousins he'd never met, and they probably didn't even know he existed. Among the photos was also a small notebook with notes written by his grandpa. They seemed like personal reflections, written over many years. 1985. Visited Nathan today. He's growing into such a bright young man. Mary is doing a wonderful job raising him alone, but I know he misses having a father figure. I wish I could be more in his life. 1995. Nathan graduated high school with the highest marks in his class. I'm as proud of him as I am of my other children. One day, I hope they can meet and accept each other as siblings. 2010. Nathan got married today. I watched the ceremony from afar, hidden among the guests. His happiness was visible from any distance. Mary cried the whole time, and so did I. The notes went on like this for pages, revealing the quiet pain of a man who loved 2 different worlds but couldn't bring them together. Ryan felt his eyes welling with tears. His grandpa had carried this burden alone his whole life, and now, somehow, he had entrusted this secret to him. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now, back to the story. The sun was already setting when Ryan decided to leave the trailer. He'd absorbed too much in one day and needed time to process everything. But before leaving, he decided to walk around the property to see if his grandpa had hidden anything else. The lot was bigger than he'd first thought. Besides the trailer, there was a small shed in the back that looked like it had been used for storage. The door was locked, but Ryan remembered the small golden key he'd found earlier. To his surprise, it fit perfectly. Inside the shed were old tools, furniture covered with tarps, and several stacked boxes. One of them had his name on it. Ryan opened it with a racing heart. Inside were letters addressed to him, all in his grandpa's handwriting, but still sealed. The first one was dated just 6 months ago, shortly before his grandpa passed. My dear Ryan, if you're reading this, it means you finally found my little treasure. I know you must be confused, maybe even a little angry with me for keeping so many secrets, but I want you to know everything I did was out of love. Love for your grandma, love for Mary, love for my children, and love for you. Ryan sat on an old crate and kept reading. I chose you for this inheritance because I always saw in you a kindness your cousins don't have. When you were a boy, you were the only one who visited me without wanting anything in return. You'd sit with me on the porch and listen to my stories with genuine interest. I saw in your eyes the same compassion I once saw in your mother when she was young. What you found in this trailer is just the beginning, my grandson. Nathan is a good man just like you. He deserves to know his family, and you deserve to know him. But the decision to reveal the truth must be yours. I trust your wisdom to do what is right." The letter continued with more details about the situation. His grandpa explained that Mary had been the great love of his youth, but circumstances at the time had pulled them apart. When they met again years later, he was already married and had children. The relationship they maintained was an attempt to reclaim something they had lost, but it resulted in Nathan. "I'm not proud of having betrayed your grandma, Ryan. She was a wonderful woman who deserved better. But I also don't regret Nathan's existence. He brought light into my life in a way I never expected. All these years I tried to be the best father I could to him, even from a distance." Ryan finished reading the letter with a mix of emotions. He understood his grandpa better now, but he still had doubts about what to do with that information. In the other letters, his grandpa had left more specific instructions. There were addresses, phone numbers, and even a map showing where Nathan lived and worked. He lived in Portland itself, in a neighborhood about 12 miles away. There was also information about the land itself. Apparently, its location wasn't random. It was exactly halfway between the house where Ryan had grown up and the house where Nathan lived. His grandpa used to go there when he wanted to reflect on his situation, trying to find a way to unite the two parts of his life. When Ryan got home that night, he was mentally and emotionally exhausted. His small apartment had never felt so cramped and quiet. He flopped onto the couch and stared at the ceiling, trying to decide what to do. Part of him wanted to forget everything he had discovered. It would be easier to sell the land like his cousins suggested and use the money to solve his financial problems. But another, stronger part knew he couldn't live with the weight of that secret. The next day, Ryan decided to look up Nathan Miller Brown. It wasn't hard to find him online. He owned a small carpentry and custom furniture business with a well-made website and plenty of positive customer reviews. In the photos on the site, Ryan could confirm the physical resemblance between Nathan and his father. There was no denying they were brothers. Nathan looked to be in his early 50s, with graying hair and a kind expression. He was married to a woman named Emily, and they had 2 teenage children. From appearances and the available information, they seemed like a hard-working, honest, middle-class family. Ryan spent the whole day debating whether to make contact. How would the other person react upon discovering he had a family he never knew? Was it fair to reveal a secret that could shatter so many people's peace? On the other hand, Nathan had the right to know the truth. And maybe, just as Ryan felt alone in the world after losing his parents, Nathan might also appreciate finding out he had brothers and nephews. 2 days later, Ryan gathered his courage and decided to go to Nathan's business. He wouldn't introduce himself right away. Just observe and get a sense of the kind of person he was. The business operated out of a simple but well-organized workshop in an industrial area of Portland. Ryan parked his motorcycle across the street and watched the activity. A few employees were working, and he could see wood-cutting machines and workbenches full of tools. Around 11 in the morning, a man Ryan recognized from the photos stepped out of the workshop. It was Nathan, no doubt. He was talking on the phone, gesturing as he spoke in a way that reminded Ryan so much of his father's mannerisms. Ryan kept watching for a few more minutes, trying to muster the courage to approach. But just as he finally decided to cross the street, Nathan got into a car and drove away. Frustrated, Ryan decided to head back home. Maybe it wasn't the right time yet, but when he arrived at his building, he got an unpleasant surprise. Jennifer was waiting at the door and she didn't look happy at all. "Ryan, we need to talk now." "Hi, Jennifer. What's going on?" She glanced around to make sure no one was listening. "I heard you still haven't sold the land. And worse, you've been asking questions about people you shouldn't." Ryan's heart raced. How could she know about Nathan? "I don't know what you're talking about." Jennifer gave a cold smile. "Don't underestimate me, Ryan. I have connections all over town. When someone starts digging up information about Nathan Miller Brown, I hear about it." Ryan felt like he'd been punched in the gut. Jennifer knew about Nathan. That meant she'd known Grandpa's secret for a long time. How did I know about Grandpa's bastard?" The chill in Jennifer's voice was sharp. "Please, Ryan, do you really think a secret that big could stay hidden forever? Some of us found out years ago." "Some of you?" "Jason and I have known since we were teenagers. We caught Grandpa in a compromising situation, let's say. He made us swear to keep it quiet, and we did. Until now. Ryan leaned against the building wall, feeling dizzy. If Jennifer and Jason had known about Nathan for so long, why had they never told anyone? "Let me spell it out for you," Jennifer continued. "Grandpa had a little fidelity problem. It happened, it's in the past, but if this gets out now, it could ruin his memory and hurt the whole family needlessly. Your grandma may be gone, but she still has sisters alive who adored Grandpa. Do you want to put them through that?" "But Nathan has the right to know his family," Ryan argued. Jennifer laughed humorlessly. "Nathan already has a family, one that loves him and doesn't need to be dragged into past complications. And as for us, we've built our lives. The last thing we need is some long-lost relative showing up to claim part of the inheritance." "You're worried about the money?" "I'm worried about the family's stability, and you should be too." Ryan felt anger rising inside him. Jennifer's coldness, the way she called Nathan a bastard, it all disgusted him. "Grandpa left the land to me, Jennifer. What I do with it is my business." Jennifer's expression hardened. "You're making a mistake, Ryan, one that could have consequences you can't even imagine." Was that a threat? A warning, from cousin to cousin? She turned to leave, but stopped and looked back. "Oh, and Ryan? That story about the city taking the land? It's true. City Hall really does have plans for that area. If you don't sell soon, you could lose everything and get nothing in return." After Jennifer left, Ryan went up to his apartment, his mind spinning. The conversation had confirmed his suspicions that there was more to his cousin's interest in the land, but it also created new problems. If other family members knew about Nathan and had deliberately kept it secret, revealing the truth now would be far more complicated than he'd imagined. Yet at the same time, Jennifer's reaction only strengthened his conviction that doing the right thing mattered, no matter the consequences. That night, Ryan returned to the land. He wanted to reread Grandpa's letters and try to understand his true intentions in leaving him that inheritance. But when he arrived, he got another surprise. There was a light on in the trailer. Ryan parked his motorcycle and approached carefully. Through the broken window, he could see a figure moving inside. She appeared to be an elderly woman, rummaging through some boxes. "Excuse me," said Ryan, knocking on the door. "Is anyone there?" The movement stopped immediately. After a few seconds, a woman's voice replied, "Who is it? What do you want?" "My name is Ryan Parker. This land is mine. Who are you?" The door opened slowly, and Ryan saw a woman around 70 years old, her white hair tied in a bun, wearing simple but clean clothes. She studied him from head to toe with sharp eyes. "Are you Edward's grandson?" she asked. "Yes, I am. And you are?" "Mary Brown Johnson. I think you must have heard of me." Ryan felt the air leave his lungs. The woman before him was the Mary from the letters, the mother of Nathan, his grandpa's secret great love. "Mrs. Mary, How did you know I was here?" She gave a sad smile. "Edward told me about you before he passed. He said he'd left everything in your hands and that if you were truly the man he believed you to be, you'd come looking for the truth." "You were waiting for me?" "In a way, yes. I live just over the hill." She pointed in a direction Ryan hadn't explored yet. "When I saw your motorcycle last night, I thought it might be you." Mary invited Ryan into the trailer, and he noticed she had tidied up the place a bit, even bringing in a chair and a small table. "I come here sometimes," she explained. "This place holds many memories for me. You and my grandpa met here?" Mary nodded, her eyes filling with nostalgia. "For many years. Edward bought this trailer in 1975, right after Nathan was born. He said he needed a place to think, to decide what to do. But I knew it was more than that. It was our refuge, the only place we could be a family, even if just for a few hours." "Did he come here with Nathan?" "Yes, especially when Nathan was little. They'd spend whole Sundays here, fishing in the creek out back, fixing up the trailer. Nathan loved those visits, even though he didn't know Edward was his father." Ryan felt a tightness in his chest, imagining his grandpa living this double life for so long. "When did Nathan find out the truth?" Mary sighed deeply. "He never did. Edward always thought it was better that way. He feared the truth could destroy his official family, and he didn't want Nathan growing up knowing he was, how should I put it, the result of a complicated situation. But didn't Nathan ever wonder why a married man took such an interest in him? Edward always presented himself as a family friend, said he'd known Nathan's father in his youth and felt responsible for helping after he passed away. Did Nathan's father really pass away? Mary looked down. Nathan's father never existed, Ryan. That was the story we created to protect everyone. Back then, having a child out of wedlock was very complicated. Edward helped me financially and was present in Nathan's life, but always as a guardian, never as a father. Ryan began to understand the complexity of the situation. His grandpa had lived a lie for decades, but a lie created to protect everyone he loved. And now? Does Nathan still not know anything? No, and I'm torn about what to do. Edward always said that when the time was right, the truth would come out naturally. Maybe you're part of that plan. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. Mary stood up and went to one of the boxes she'd brought. From it, she pulled out an old photo album. "I want to show you something," she said, sitting back down. She opened the album, and Ryan saw dozens of photos documenting Nathan's childhood and youth. There were pictures of him fishing with his grandpa, playing in the yard, helping with small chores in the trailer. In all of them, Nathan looked happy and relaxed. "Look at this one," Mary pointed to a photo where Nathan, around 10 years old, stood next to Edward, both smiling as they held up a small fish. It was the day he caught his first fish all by himself. He was so proud that Edward took 5 identical pictures. Ryan studied the image. There was something in the way his grandpa looked at Nathan that was impossible to deny. It was the gaze of a proud father. "In all these photos," Mary continued, "you can see the love they had for each other. Edward was more present in Nathan's life than many fathers are with their own children." Then why did he never tell the truth? Fear, mostly. Fear of losing the family he already had. Fear of being judged, fear of causing pain. And also because back then things were different. A scandal like that could ruin a person's reputation forever. Mary turned a few more pages and showed more recent photos. Nathan as a teenager, then a young adult, his graduation, his wedding. Edward was there for every important moment in Nathan's life, always as the family friend. When Nathan got married, Edward paid for half the wedding. When he wanted to start his business, Edward lent him the money for the initial investment. He always found ways to help without raising suspicions. Didn't Nathan ever find it strange, all that attention? Nathan is a very kind person, just like you. He always accepted the story that Edward felt responsible for him because of his friendship with his supposed father. And since Edward never overdid the affection, it never seemed suspicious. Ryan looked at more photos and noticed something interesting. In several of them, Nathan was wearing clothes or holding items he remembered seeing in his own home as a child. These clothes, I remember them. Mary smiled. Edward always passed down clothes his own kids had outgrown to Nathan. He said it was a shame to waste good clothes. Nathan never minded wearing hand-me-downs, especially since they were always high quality. It was a connection Ryan had never imagined. He and Nathan had, in a way, shared things throughout their childhoods without knowing. "Mrs. Mary, can I ask you a personal question?" "Of course. Do you still love my grandpa?" Mary was silent for a long moment, looking at a photo where she, Nathan, and Edward were together at a picnic. "I've always loved him, Ryan, even knowing he could never be completely mine, even knowing our situation was complicated. Edward was a good man caught in an impossible position. He loved his wife, he loved his children, but he loved us too. And instead of abandoning either side, he tried to care for everyone the best he could. Wasn't it hard for you to live like that?" It was. There were times I thought about leaving, taking Nathan far away and starting over. But I saw how happy he was having Edward around, even without knowing the truth. And I couldn't imagine my life without those moments we spent here, in this trailer, being a family. Ryan looked around the trailer with new eyes. This wasn't just a place for secret meetings. It was where an unconventional family had found its way to exist. What do you think I should do now? Mary closed the album and held it to her chest. Edward trusted this decision to you for a reason. He saw something in you that reassured him about the future of his secret. But I need to tell you something important. It's not just about Nathan. It's about you too. How so? You're a young man alone in the world, Ryan. Your parents are gone and you have no siblings. Nathan also values family above all else. You both could benefit from getting to know each other. What if Nathan wants nothing to do with a family that lied to him his whole life? That's the risk. But there's also the chance he'll be happy to discover he's not as alone as he thought. Nathan has always longed to know his father's side of the family. He's always asked questions about his father that I never knew how to answer. Mary stood up and walked to the window, gazing outside as night began to fall. There's one more thing you should know, Ryan. Edward left specific instructions for me too. If you decided to tell Nathan the truth, I was to help you, but if you chose to keep the secret, I would respect your decision and take the truth to my grave. What were his instructions? Mary returned to Ryan's side and pulled an envelope from her pocket. He wrote a letter for Nathan, explaining everything, but he said it should only be given to him if you, after learning the whole story, believed it was the right thing to do. Ryan took the envelope with trembling hands. On the back it read, "To Nathan, my son in heart." May I read it? Edward said you should read it before making any decision. Ryan carefully opened the envelope. The letter was long, written in his grandpa's neat handwriting. My dearest Nathan, if you're reading this letter, it means the time for truth has come. All your life you believed your father had left when you were a child, and that I was just a family friend who felt responsible for helping you. That was a lie we created, your mother and I, to protect everyone. The truth is, I am your father, Nathan. You are my son, just as much as your half-siblings, and there hasn't been a day when I haven't been proud of you. When your mother told me she was expecting you, I was going through a very difficult time in my marriage. Your grandmother Catherine had lost a baby a few months before, and our relationship was deeply strained. Finding Mary again at that time was like finding a ray of light in a very dark period. I'm not proud of betraying my wife, but I also can't regret you coming into this world. You've been a blessing in my life from the very first day. All these years I've tried to be the best father I could to you, despite the limitations of our situation. Every achievement of yours was also mine. Every moment of happiness you've had filled me with joy. You've grown into a man any father would be proud of. I know learning the truth now may be painful, and I ask forgiveness for all the years of lies. But I also want you to know you have a family you've never met, one that could come to love you as much as I always have. Ryan, the young man delivering this letter, is your nephew. He's the son of your older half-brother, and he's a person of character whom I know you can trust. The decision to reveal our relationship to the rest of the family is yours, Nathan. If you prefer to keep things as they are, I'll respect your choice. But if you wish to meet your siblings and nephews, I hope you can forgive the mistakes of the past and give everyone a chance to know one another. You've always asked about traits of yours that didn't come from your mother, your skill with your hands, your love for nature, your careful way with the people you love. All these things you inherited from me, just as you inherited your kindness and determination from your mother. Know that you've always been loved, Nathan. Even when I couldn't show it openly, you've always been in my heart. And I hope that wherever I am now, I can see you all united as a true family. With all the love of a proud father, Edward. Ryan finished reading the letter with tears in his eyes. The emotion in his grandpa's words was palpable, and he could feel the weight of all those years of secrets and sacrifices. It's a beautiful letter, said Mary, who had been watching Ryan's reaction. It is, and it's very honest too. He didn't try to justify himself or downplay what he did. Edward was always like that. He took responsibility even when it was hard. Ryan folded the letter and placed it back in the envelope. Mrs. Mary, can I ask you another question? Of course. Do you think Nathan will want to meet the family? Mary thought for a moment before answering. I've known my son for over 50 years, Ryan. He's someone who values the truth above all else, even when it's painful. He's also someone who always wanted a bigger family. I think he'll be shocked at first, maybe even angry about the lie, but deep down, he'll be happy to discover he has brothers and nephews. And his wife? His kids? Emily is an understanding woman, and the boys are already teenagers, old enough to grasp complex situations. I think everyone will come around after the initial shock. Ryan tucked the letter into his jacket pocket and looked around the trailer once more. There's one thing I still don't understand. Why don't my cousins want me to tell the truth? If they've known the secret for so long, what's the problem now? Mary sighed and shook her head. Edward told me about how some of the grandchildren reacted when they found out about Nathan. Not everyone took it well. Some were worried about inheritance, others about the family's reputation. Edward was very disappointed back then. Did they threaten to do something? Not exactly threaten, but they made it clear they wouldn't support any attempt to reveal the truth. Edward even considered telling everything while he was alive, but he gave up when he saw their reaction. And now they're trying to pressure me into selling the land. That doesn't surprise me. If you sell the land and disappear, the secret stays buried forever. That's what they want. Ryan stood up and walked to the trailer door. Outside, the night was clear, with countless stars visible in the sky. It was the kind of night his grandpa used to love. Mrs. Mary, I'd like to meet Nathan before making any decisions. Do you think you could arrange a casual meeting without him knowing who I am? Mary smiled. I think that can be arranged. Nathan usually has lunch every Friday at a small diner near his office. It's a simple place where he feels comfortable. You could happen to show up there. Do you think he'd talk to a stranger? Nathan is very sociable. If you approach him naturally, I'm sure he'll talk to you. Ryan felt a mix of anxiety and anticipation. He'd finally have the chance to meet this uncle he never knew existed. All right, let's try this Friday. Mary stepped closer to Ryan and placed a gentle hand on his arm. Ryan, I want you to know that no matter what you decide, I already admire your courage and kindness. Edward chose well when he trusted you. Thank you, Mrs. Mary. That means a lot to me. They said their goodbyes, and Ryan headed home with his mind racing. He only had a few days to prepare for one of the most important meetings of his life. On Thursday night, the evening before the planned meeting, Ryan got an unexpected call. It was Jennifer. Ryan, I need to talk to you urgently. It's about the land. What about the land? The City Hall sped up the expropriation process. You have until Monday to accept the purchase offer we secured for you, or you'll lose everything. Ryan felt an immediate suspicion. What do you mean, Jennifer? Yesterday you said I had time. Things changed. My contact at City Hall called today. They need to settle this quickly because of budget issues. I need to verify this directly with City Hall. You can verify, but you'll waste precious time. The offer we have is good, Ryan. Much better than any compensation City Hall would pay. Ryan hung up without giving a definitive answer. There was something about Jennifer's sudden urgency that didn't add up, and the coincidence of the deadline being right after his meeting with Nathan was too suspicious. On Friday morning, Ryan dressed carefully for the meeting. He chose simple but presentable clothes and arrived at the restaurant Mary had suggested about 15 minutes before Nathan's usual time. The restaurant was a cozy, family-friendly place with wooden tables and a relaxed atmosphere. Ryan picked a table where he could see the entrance and ordered coffee while he waited. At 11:45, Nathan walked into the restaurant. Ryan recognized him immediately, and his first impression was even stronger than expected. The resemblance to his father was striking, but there was also something in his posture and gestures that reminded him of his grandpa. Nathan greeted the waiter by name and headed to a table in the back where he apparently always sat. Ryan waited a few minutes, finished his coffee, and went to the counter to pay. "Excuse me," he said to the waiter, "could you recommend a dish? It's my first time here." The waiter, a friendly young man, smiled. "Of course. Our specialty is grilled chicken with vegetables. Mr. Parker over there always orders it." He discreetly pointed to Nathan. "Says it's the best in town." Ryan pretended to glance in the direction as if seeing Nathan for the first time. "Mr. Parker, seems like a special customer." "He is. He's been coming here every Friday for years, owns a woodworking shop nearby, a really nice guy. Ryan thanked him for the recommendation and, taking advantage of the waiter's distraction, approached Nathan's table. "Excuse me, sir. The waiter recommended the grilled chicken and said you always order it. Is it really that good?" Nathan looked up and Ryan felt his stomach tighten. Up close, the resemblance to his father was even more striking. "It's excellent," Nathan replied with a genuine smile. "I've been coming here for years and have never been disappointed. Are you new to the area?" "Sort of. I'm looking for work around here. Heard there's a good woodworking shop nearby." "There is. It's mine," Nathan laughed. "But, unfortunately, I'm not hiring right now. Do you have experience with woodworking?" Ryan sat in the chair Nathan had gestured to, his heart racing. "Not professionally, but I've always enjoyed working with wood. My grandpa taught me a few things when I was a kid." "Ah, so you know how important it is to have someone teach you those things. I also learned from someone special, a family friend who was like a father to me." Ryan felt a lump in his throat. Nathan was talking about his own grandpa without knowing. "Is he still alive?" Nathan lowered his eyes, his expression turning somber. "Sadly, no. He passed a few months ago. It was a huge loss for me. He was special. I'm sorry." "Thank you. You know how it is, right? Some people leave a mark on your life like no one else." They talked through the entire lunch. Nathan was exactly as Ryan had imagined, a kind, hard-working family man. He spoke fondly of his wife and children, showed genuine interest in helping Ryan with advice about work and life, and shared funny stories about situations in the carpentry shop. But what impressed Ryan the most was when Nathan mentioned some habits and traits he had inherited from the family friend. He always said working with wood was like talking to an old friend. You have to be patient, listen to what it's telling you, and respect its natural characteristics. Ryan nearly choked on his food. His grandpa used to say those exact same words when talking about carpentry. Sounds like he was a very wise man. He was. And funny too. He had a special way of telling stories that made everyone laugh. And he was really caring, you know. The kind of person you could tell genuinely cared about you. At the end of lunch, Nathan insisted on paying for Ryan's meal. "Let me get this, it's always good to help someone just starting out." "You don't have to, Mr. Nathan." "Of course I do. And just call me Nathan. I'm not that old," he laughed. When they said goodbye outside the restaurant, Nathan handed Ryan a business card. "If you need anything or want to talk about work, give me a call. And if you change your mind about carpentry, stop by. I can always teach you a few techniques." Ryan carefully tucked the card away, touched by the generosity of this man he had just met. "Thank you for the company and the kindness, Nathan. It was a pleasure meeting you." "The pleasure was mine, Ryan." When Ryan mentioned his name, he saw a strange glimmer in Nathan's eyes, as if the name had sparked some memory. But the moment passed quickly, and they parted ways. On the way home, Ryan felt certain he had made the right decision. Nathan was a wonderful person who deserved to meet his family, and who would also be a valuable addition to Ryan's life. But when he reached his building, he found Jennifer, Jason, and 2 other cousins waiting for him. And they didn't seem to be there for a friendly chat. "Ryan," Jennifer said with a hard expression, "the game's over. You're selling that land now, or we'll take action." "What kind of action?" Jason stepped forward. "We've already talked to a lawyer. We have grounds to challenge Grandpa's will. We can argue he wasn't in his right mind when he made it." Ryan felt anger rising inside him. "Are you serious? You're going to try to overturn the will?" "If we have to," said Jennifer. "We'd rather settle this amicably, but you're forcing our hand." "And there's more," added Brian Christopher, a cousin Ryan barely knew. "We've already found out you've been asking questions about people you shouldn't. That could cause trouble for the whole family." Ryan looked at the 4 cousins surrounding him and realized he had underestimated how far they were willing to go to keep the secret. "You have no right to threaten me." "We're not threatening," said Jennifer. "We're warning you. If you keep digging where you shouldn't, you could end up hurting innocent people, and we won't allow that." Ryan went up to his apartment with a racing heart and a confused mind. The pressure from his cousins was mounting, but his meeting with Nathan had only strengthened his conviction that doing the right thing mattered. That night, he called Mary and told her about the lunch and the pressure he was getting from the family. Ryan, you need to be careful. If your cousins are willing to go this far to keep the secret, they might try other things. Like what? They might try to convince Nathan that you're some kind of opportunist, or make up stories to discredit you before you get a chance to tell the truth. Ryan hadn't considered that possibility. Do you think I should speed up the process? I think you should follow your heart, but carefully. And maybe it's better to have a witness when you tell Nathan the truth. Would you be willing to be there? Of course, Ryan. I think it's time Nathan learned the truth about his father, even if it means reliving painful moments from the past. On Saturday morning, Ryan made a decision. He called Nathan and said he had something important to discuss, asking if they could meet on Sunday. Of course, Ryan, did something happen? You sound worried. It's something personal I recently discovered. I'd rather explain in person. Nathan agreed to meet at the lot where the trailer was parked. Ryan said it was a place with special meaning for what he needed to share. On Sunday morning, Ryan arrived early, accompanied by Mary. They had agreed she would stay hidden at first, only appearing when Ryan felt the time was right. Nathan arrived right on time, driving a small work truck. When he saw the trailer, his expression completely changed. Ryan, what is this place? It belonged to my grandpa. Please come here so I can explain. Nathan approached the trailer with a confused and slightly worried look. Ryan, this trailer, I remember it. Ryan's heart raced. You do? Yeah. When I was a kid, I used to come here with... Nathan stopped mid-sentence, and Ryan could see the pieces starting to connect in his mind. With the family friend I told you about, Edward Parker. Nathan, I need to tell you something very important. It might be a shock, but it's the truth. Nathan leaned against the side of the trailer, as if he needed support. Ryan... Parker. Your last name is Parker. Yes. And your grandpa was Edward Parker. He was? Nathan fell silent for a long moment, looking at the trailer and then back at Ryan. Are you trying to tell me that... Ryan pulled the letter from his pocket. My grandpa left this for you. He asked me to give it to you when the time was right. Nathan took the letter with trembling hands. When he saw his name written on the envelope, his legs nearly gave out. How did you know about me? I found documents and photos here in the trailer. My grandpa kept everything, and I also met your mother. My mother? How? It was then that Mary stepped out from behind the small shed where she'd been hiding. Hi, Nathan. Nathan looked at his mother, then at Ryan, trying to process what was happening. Mom, what are you doing here? What's going on? Mary walked closer to her son and took his hands. It's time for you to know the truth, my son. The truth about your father. Nathan opened the letter and began to read. Ryan and Mary watched as a wave of emotions crossed his face. Surprise, confusion, sadness, anger, and finally, a strange mix of relief and joy. When he finished reading, Nathan sat on the trailer's step and stared at the ground for several minutes. 52 years, he finally said. 52 years of lies. Nathan, Mary began. No, Mum. Let me process this. He looked at Ryan. You're my nephew. My nephew. I am. And your dad was your half-brother. He passed away 3 years ago. Nathan nodded slowly. In the letter, my dad, mentions other siblings. You have 2 more uncles and several cousins. And they know about me? Ryan hesitated before answering. Some do, others don't. And not everyone who knows is happy about you finding out the truth. Nathan stood and walked around the trailer, touching the walls as if reliving memories. All those Sundays we spent here, he was being my father, even if he couldn't say it. That's exactly it, confirmed Mary. And when I started the company, the loan he gave me, it was a father helping his child achieve their dreams. Nathan sat back down and looked at Ryan. Why did you decide to tell me? Because I thought you had the right to know. And because, well, I also felt alone after my parents died. I thought maybe we could both benefit from having family. Nathan smiled for the first time since he'd arrived. You know what's funny? I always felt like something was missing in my life. I always wanted siblings, cousins, a bigger family, and now I find out I always had one, I just didn't know. How are you feeling? Asked Mary. Nathan thought for a moment. Confused mostly. A little betrayed by the lie, but also happy. Really happy to find out Edward was truly my father. I always felt a special connection with him, but never understood why. He looked at Ryan again. And you? How do you feel about discovering you have an uncle? Anxious, hopeful, a little scared too. Scared why? Ryan explained the pressure he was under from the other cousins, the threats to invalidate the will, and the family's resistance to accepting the truth. Nathan listened quietly, his expression growing more serious. I see. They're afraid I'll show up to claim part of the inheritance. Possibly. Or maybe they just want to keep the secret to protect my grandpa's memory. What do you think? Ryan paused before answering. I think they care more about the money than anything. And I think they're wrong to try to hide you. You're part of this family, whether they like it or not. Nathan stood and held out his hand to Ryan. Well, nephew, seems we've got some people to meet. Ryan shook his uncle's hand with a smile. You want to meet the rest of the family? I do, but first I need to talk to Emily and my kids. They deserve to know before anyone else. Mary stepped closer to the two men. I was thinking, how about we host a lunch here at the property next Sunday? Nathan can bring his family, Ryan can invite whoever he wants, and we'll take it slow. That's a good idea, Nathan agreed. But what if the other cousins show up to cause trouble? Ryan glanced at the trailer, then at his uncle. Let them come. This land is rightfully mine. You're rightfully my uncle. And our family is rightfully ours. We won't hide from anyone. That afternoon, after Nathan left to talk to his family, Ryan got a call from Jennifer. She was furious. Ryan, I heard you met with that man today. Did you tell him? How did you find out? That doesn't matter. Did you or didn't you? Ryan took a deep breath. I did, Jennifer. Nathan knows the truth now. The silence on the other end lasted nearly a minute. You have no idea what you've just done, she finally said. Yes, I do. I did the right thing. You just destroyed our family's peace, and you ruined your own life too. What do you mean? Tomorrow morning, we're filing to invalidate the will, and we'll claim you conspired with an outsider to commit inheritance fraud. That's ridiculous, Jennifer. Is it? You sought out a man who'd financially benefit if he were recognized as Grandpa's son. You met in secret. Now he's making claims on the family. To a judge, that'll look like a very convincing conspiracy. Ryan's stomach turned. He hadn't considered his actions could be twisted this way. Nathan isn't claiming anything, Jennifer. He just wanted to know his family. It doesn't matter what he wants now. It matters what he'll want later, and it matters how it'll look to a judge. Jennifer hung up the phone, and Ryan stood still for several minutes, trying to process the conversation. Could it really be possible that his cousins would manage to make him lose the inheritance and even accuse him of fraud? On Monday morning, Ryan received a court summons at home. His cousins had followed through on their threat and filed a lawsuit to invalidate the will. In the petition, they claimed that Edward Parker wasn't in sound mental health when he made the will, and that Ryan had conspired with others to commit inheritance fraud. Ryan immediately called Nathan and told him about the lawsuit. Ryan, I'm so sorry. I didn't want you to have trouble because of me. It's not because of you, Nathan. It's because of other people's greed and fear. What can I do to help? I don't know yet. I need to find a lawyer. I have a trusted lawyer. You can say I referred you. That afternoon, Ryan met with Dr. Michael Andrews, the lawyer Nathan had recommended. He was a middle-aged man, experienced in family and inheritance matters. Your situation is complex, Ryan, said the lawyer after hearing the whole story. But it's not impossible. We have a few points in our favor. Like what? First, the will was drafted by a competent lawyer with all the legal formalities. Second, there are witnesses who can confirm your grandpa was lucid and aware when he made it. Third, the conspiracy accusations are very hard to prove without concrete evidence. And the points against us? The main difficulty is that you did seek out Nathan after finding out about him. That might look suspicious if not properly explained. We'll need to show your intentions were pure and that there was no financial motive involved. Nathan didn't even know he was my grandpa's son when we met. That's important. If we can prove Nathan had no prior knowledge of his paternity, it becomes much harder to argue conspiracy. Dr. Michael explained that the lawsuit could take several months and that in the meantime the property would be frozen. Ryan wouldn't be able to sell it or make any changes to it. There's another complication, the lawyer added. If Nathan is legally recognized as your grandpa's son, he'd be entitled to a share of the inheritance. That means, even if you win the case, you might still have to split the property. Ryan hadn't considered that possibility. What if Nathan doesn't want to claim anything? He can renounce his rights, but it would have to be done officially, with legal documentation. When Ryan told Nathan about this issue, he was firm. "Ryan, I don't want anything that's rightfully yours. My father left that property to you for a reason, and I respect that. But legally I can give up my rights. And that's what I'll do." "Are you sure?" Nathan smiled. "I have a business that's doing well, a family who loves me, and now I know I have relatives who care about me. I don't need anything else. The property is yours, Ryan." The conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Emily, Nathan's wife, along with their 2 teenage sons. Ryan was nervous about meeting them, but his worries turned out to be unfounded. "So you're the nephew who came out of nowhere," said Emily with a warm smile. "Nathan told me everything. What an incredible story." The boys, 16-year-old Josh and 14-year-old Tyler, were clearly fascinated by the discovery. "Does this mean we have cousins we don't know?" asked Josh. "You have plenty of cousins," Ryan replied, "some nicer than others." "Dad told us about the trouble with the family," said Tyler. "Why don't they want to meet us?" Ryan looked at Nathan, who nodded as if telling him to be honest. "Because some people prefer to keep secrets rather than face complicated truths, and because they're afraid you might want something they think belongs only to them." "But we don't want anything," said Josh. "We just wanted to get to know the family." "I know, and I hope soon you'll be able to meet everyone." The following week, something unexpected happened. Mrs. Eleanor, one of the oldest sisters of Ryan's grandmother, showed up at the lot where the trailer stood. She was accompanied by her daughter, Ryan's second cousin. Ryan was there organizing some documents when they arrived. "Ryan Parker?" the elderly woman asked. "Yes, that's me, and you are—" "Eleanor Thompson, your grandmother Catherine's sister, and this is my daughter, Patricia." Ryan was surprised. Mrs. Eleanor was almost a legendary figure in the family, known for her bluntness and fearlessness. "Mrs. Eleanor, it's a pleasure to meet you. What brings you here?" "I heard about the mess happening in the family, and I decided to come talk to you in person." She looked around the lot and then at the trailer. "So this is the famous trailer causing all the fuss?" "Yes, it is." Mrs. Eleanor walked up to the trailer and examined it carefully. "Your grandpa used to come here for years, didn't he?" Ryan was taken aback by the question. "How did you know?" "Because I knew his secret, boy. I've known for a long time." "You knew?" Patricia, who had been silent until then, spoke up. "My mother always knew about Uncle Edward's relationship with Mary, and about Nathan." Ryan felt as if the ground had vanished beneath his feet. "But how?" Mrs. Eleanor sighed and sat on a nearby rock. "Ryan, do you really think a man can keep a secret that big for decades without anyone noticing? Your grandmother Catherine knew. I knew. A few others in the family knew." "My grandmother knew?" "Of course she did. Catherine wasn't stupid, boy. She knew Edward was financially supporting a woman and a child. She knew about his mysterious trips. She knew everything." "Then why did she never say anything?" "Because she loved her husband and chose to turn a blind eye rather than destroy the family. And deep down she understood the situation." Mrs. Eleanor explained that Catherine had lost 3 babies before having her first surviving child. During one of those difficult times, Edward had gotten involved with Mary, a young and vulnerable woman who worked at the same factory as him. When Nathan was born, Catherine was pregnant again. She even thought about leaving Edward. but she lost the baby and fell into a deep depression. Edward took care of her with great tenderness and she decided to forgive him. But she kept pretending she didn't know. It wasn't pretending, Ryan. It was a choice. Catherine chose to accept that her husband had another family, as long as he remained a good husband and father to her and their children. And did it work? It worked for over 40 years. Edward never betrayed Catherine again and was a devoted husband. His relationship with Mary became more of a family responsibility than anything else. Patricia added, "Aunt Catherine even helped sometimes. When Nathan needed surgery as a child, she was the one who insisted Uncle Edward pay for the health insurance." Ryan was stunned. The version of the story he knew was completely wrong. "Then why are my cousins making such a big deal out of this?" "Because they found out the secret by accident and never knew Catherine already knew. They think they're protecting her memory when in reality they're disrespecting the choice she made." Mrs. Eleanor stood up and walked toward the trailer. This place represented the way Edward found to balance his responsibilities. Here he could be Nathan's father without neglecting his other family. "Do you think I did the right thing by telling Nathan the truth? I think you did exactly what your grandmother Catherine would have wanted. She always said that when the right time came, Nathan should meet his family." "Catherine said that?" "She told me many times, especially after you grandchildren started growing up. She said it would be a shame if Nathan and you never got to know each other." Patricia moved closer to Ryan. "Ryan, we want to help you with the court case. My mother can testify that Uncle Edward was of sound mind when he made the will, and that Aunt Catherine knew about Nathan and approved." "You'd do that?" "Of course," said Mrs. Eleanor. "It's the right thing to do, and besides, I want to meet this Nathan. If he's my brother-in-law's son, then he's my nephew." That same afternoon, Ryan called Dr. Michael and told him about Mrs. Eleanor's visit. "Ryan, this changes everything," said the lawyer, excited. "If we have witnesses that your grandmother knew about Nathan and approved, the claim that you were conspiring to commit inheritance fraud falls apart completely." "How so?" "Because if Catherine knew about Nathan and supported his eventual recognition in the family, then revealing the truth now can't be considered a betrayal of her memory. Quite the opposite." Dr. Michael explained that with Mrs. Eleanor's testimony, they could not only defend Ryan against the accusations, but also counterattack, arguing that the other heirs were trying to suppress important information about the true wishes of the deceased. The following Sunday, the planned lunch took place at the property. Ryan had cleared the area around the trailer and set up some makeshift tables. Nathan brought his family, Mary came with some dishes she had prepared, and Mrs. Eleanor arrived with Patricia and 2 more relatives who wanted to meet Nathan. It was an emotional gathering. Nathan was visibly moved by the warmth he received from people he had just met. Mrs. Eleanor treated him exactly like any other nephew, and his children got along well with their newly discovered cousins. "You know," Nathan said to Ryan as they watched the kids playing, "I always felt like something was missing in my life. Now I know what it was. Family really is important." "Yeah, and thank you for having the courage to tell me the truth. I know it wasn't easy." The lunch was interrupted by the arrival of 3 cars. It was Jennifer, accompanied by Jason, Brian, Christopher, and a few other cousins. They had come ready for a confrontation. "What's going on here?" Jennifer asked, eyeing the gathering. "A party for the Bastard family?" Mrs. Eleanor stood up from the table where she was sitting. "Jennifer Brown Parker, where are your manners?" Jennifer paled when she saw her great-aunt. "Mrs. Eleanor, I didn't know you were here." "I'm here because this young man," she pointed at Nathan, "is my nephew, my brother-in-law Edward's son, and he deserves to be treated with respect." "But Aunt Eleanor, you don't understand." "I understand perfectly. I understand you're trying to keep a secret that didn't need to be a secret, and I understand you're suing Ryan for doing the right thing." Jason tried a different approach. "Mrs. Eleanor, with all due respect, this situation is complicated. We don't know if this man is really Grandpa's son." Nathan stood up and pulled some documents from his pocket. "I took a DNA test, comparing it to hairs my mother kept from Edward. The results came in yesterday." He showed the document to everyone. 99.8% probability of paternity. There's no more doubt." The silence that followed was broken by Patricia. There. Now that it's scientifically proven, you can stop this nonsense and accept Nathan into the family. Jennifer looked around and realized she was outnumbered. Besides Mrs. Eleanor and Patricia, there were other older family members there who clearly supported Nathan and Ryan. "That doesn't change a thing," she said, but her voice was less confident. "The lawsuit is still going forward." "The lawsuit will continue until you lose," said Mrs. Eleanor. "And you'll lose badly because I'll testify that Catherine knew everything and approved." "You can't testify to that." "I can and I will. Catherine was my sister, and we talked about everything. She told me about Nathan many times and always said that one day he should meet the family." Jennifer and the other cousins exchanged worried glances. It was obvious they hadn't expected such organized resistance. "Besides," Mrs. Eleanor continued, "Nathan has already officially renounced any claim to the inheritance, so you can't even argue he's after the money." Nathan confirmed with a nod. "I filed the formal renunciation yesterday, along with the DNA test. I don't want anything except to be accepted by the family." After a few tense minutes of arguing, Jennifer and the others left. But Ryan knew it wasn't over. On Monday, Dr. Michael called with news about the lawsuit. Ryan, the other side's lawyers, reached out. They want to propose a settlement. "What kind of settlement?" "They'll drop the case if you agree to keep Nathan away from family gatherings and matters related to your grandpa's inheritance." "That's ridiculous. Nathan is part of the family whether they like it or not." "That's what I told them. But I thought you should know they're willing to negotiate. It means they know they're losing." That afternoon, Ryan got an unexpected call. It was Heather, a cousin who lived out of town and rarely got involved in family matters. "Ryan, I heard about the mess going on. Can you explain what's really happening?" Ryan told Heather the whole story, from the discovery in the trailer to the lawsuit. "Ryan, I need to tell you something. My mom always knew about Nathan, and so did I." "What do you mean?" "When I was about 15, I saw Uncle Edward at the mall with a woman and a boy. They looked like a family. I told my mom, and she explained the situation." "And you never told anyone?" "My mom made me promise not to. She said it was the adults' business and not for me to judge." Heather explained that more people in the family knew about Nathan, but had stayed quiet out of respect for the older generation. "I think it's time everyone admits what they know," she said. "I'll talk to a few people and see how many are willing to support you." Over the next week, several family members reached out to Ryan. Apparently, Nathan's secret was far less secret than the cousins had thought. Dr. Michael was thrilled with the developments. "Ryan, with so many witnesses, their case falls apart completely. Plus, we've got something even better." "What is it?" "One of the people who came forward brought an audio recording." "Recording?" "Your great-uncle Richard, your grandpa's brother, recorded a conversation he had with Edward a few years ago. In it, Edward talks openly about Nathan and his wish for him to be accepted by the family." Ryan couldn't believe it. "And why did Uncle Richard never say anything?" "Because Edward asked him to keep it secret while he was alive. But now that things have come to this, he decided to reveal it." In the recording, which Ryan listened to at the lawyer's office, his grandpa spoke emotionally about Nathan and the burden of keeping the secret. "Richard, sometimes I regret not having the courage to face this from the start. Nathan is a wonderful son, and he deserved to grow up knowing who his father was. But I was afraid of the consequences for Catherine and the kids." "And now, Edward, what do you plan to do?" "I'm thinking of putting something in my will that forces the truth to come out after I'm gone. Maybe it'll be easier for everyone to deal with this when I'm no longer here to be judged." The recording continued with Edward explaining that he was thinking of leaving the trailer to Ryan because he trusted his kindness and wisdom. Ryan was always different from the other grandchildren. He has a good heart and knows how to do the right thing even when it's hard. If anyone can bring our family together, it's him. When Ryan heard those words, he felt his eyes fill with tears. His grandpa had planned everything as a way to force the truth to come out while protecting everyone. On the day of the court hearing, Ryan was nervous but confident. Dr. Michael had prepared a solid case with several witnesses and evidence showing that Edward was of sound mind when he made the will and that many in the family knew about Nathan. Mrs. Eleanor was the first to testify. She was firm in stating that Catherine knew about Nathan and had always said he should meet the family when the time was right. Uncle Richard also testified and presented the recording where Edward spoke about his plans to reveal the truth through the will. The turning point came when Nathan took the stand. He explained how he had discovered his parentage, how he had renounced any claim to the inheritance, and how his only wish was to be accepted by the family. "Your Honor, I'm not here for money or property. I have my own life, my own family, my own livelihood. I'm here because I found out I have brothers, nephews, cousins I never knew, and I'd like the chance to meet them." Jennifer's lawyers tried to argue that Ryan had manipulated the situation to benefit Nathan, but they couldn't provide any convincing evidence, especially after it became clear that Nathan had given up all claims before the case even started. The judge was clear in his decision. "I see no evidence of conspiracy or manipulation in this case. What I see is a young man who discovered information about his family and made the brave choice to reveal the truth, even knowing it could cause complications. The will was made under legally sound conditions, and the claims of the deceased's mental incapacity are unfounded." The case was dismissed, and Ryan kept ownership of the land. After the court victory, things in the family slowly began to settle. Jennifer and some cousins still kept their distance, but most of the family eventually accepted Nathan. That Christmas, for the first time in over 50 years, Nathan joined the Parker family for their holiday dinner. It was an emotional moment for everyone, especially when he shared stories about the Sundays he'd spent in the trailer with Edward. "Now I understand why he always told me to value family," Nathan said during dinner. "He knew that one day I'd have a much bigger family to love." Ryan decided to turn the land into a family gathering place. He renovated the trailer, turning it into a sort of museum for Edward's memories, and built a barbecue area where the family could come together. "I think this is what Grandpa wanted," he told Nathan during the renovation's unveiling. "For this place to bring us together, not push us apart." Nathan started spending weekends at the family's woodshop, teaching techniques he'd learned from Edward to his younger nephews. It was his way of keeping alive the tradition his father had started. 6 months after the truth came out, Mary passed away peacefully in her sleep. She was 73 and had lived to see her son finally accepted into the family of the man she'd always loved. At the funeral, the entire Parker family was present. Nathan was one of the pallbearers, walking alongside his half-brothers, the ones he'd only just come to know. "Thank you for taking such good care of our father," one of them said to Nathan after the ceremony. "Thank you for accepting me into the family," Nathan replied. Ryan had developed a very close relationship with Nathan and his family. Josh and Tyler, Nathan's sons, became like younger brothers to him, and Emily always said Ryan had been a blessing in their lives. "Sometimes families form in strange ways," she told Ryan during one of their gatherings at the property. "But what matters is that in the end, everyone finds each other." A year after discovering the truth about Nathan, Ryan received a job offer from Nathan's company. He accepted and became a minority partner in the woodworking business, applying some innovative ideas that helped it grow. "Grandpa would be proud," Nathan told Ryan on the day they signed the partnership agreement. "We managed to unite the two things he loved most, family and working with wood." During the renovation of the company's office, they found an old toolbox that had belonged to Edward. Inside was another letter, addressed to "my children." "If you're reading this together, it means you've overcome the obstacles I placed in your path. I always knew it would be hard to unite two families that grew up apart, but I also always believed love would be stronger than fear. Nathan, you've always made me proud. Ryan, you were always my hope for the future. Now together, I hope you can build something even greater than I ever could alone." 3 years after the secret was revealed, the Parker family gathered to celebrate what would have been Edward's 80th birthday. It was a big celebration, held at the trailer property, with over 50 people in attendance. During the party, Mrs. Eleanor, now 87, gave an emotional speech. "Edward was always a family man, even when his family was complicated. Today, seeing all of you together here, I know he'd be happy. You've done what he always dreamed of, turning secrets into love and division into unity." Ryan, now married to a teacher he met at one of the family gatherings, looked around and saw Nathan teaching the youngest grandchildren how to fish in the creek behind the property. He saw cousins who once fought now laughing and talking together. He saw a family that had learned love is stronger than any secret. At the end of the party, as everyone was leaving, Nathan approached Ryan. "Thank you," he said simply. "For what?" "For having the courage to do what our father couldn't do in his lifetime." Ryan looked at the restored trailer, where photos of the entire family now hung, including the old pictures of Edward with Nathan that Mary had kept for so many years. "I think he did manage it, Nathan, just in a different way than he planned." "How so?" "He knew that if he told the truth while alive, it could cause a lot of pain. So he created a way to reveal everything after he was gone, when people would be ready to accept it. It was a 40-year plan." Nathan smiled and looked up at the starry sky. "Well played, old man. Well played." The end. And you? What did you think of this story of family secrets and reconciliation? Have you experienced something similar, or know families with complicated situations that turned out well? Share your experience in the comments and tell us where you're following from. Subscribe to the channel for more heartwarming stories like this one.